Welcome back to Joe Stunner Boxing. Today there was, I've got to be honest, an entertaining little get-together with Chris Eubank Jr., Conor Benn and their respective teams. It was in Manchester, press conference to kick off their little long-awaited by some fight. This is not a fight that's ever really appealed to me. I think it's a gimmick fight, but I've got to be honest, it was an interesting listen because it wasn't just the standard, sort of verbal custard pies being thrown at each other, although there was plenty of that going on. There were some real naughty things, naughty insinuations being made, and not just with the fighters. So the press conference begins. Eddie Hearn starts to speak because for whatever reason, Ade Oladipo, who's the chair of the press conference, he says, "Let's hear from you, Eddie. What do you think?" And then as soon as Eddie starts talking, Chris pops up and says, "Eddie, I don't like you, right? I don't want to hear your bullshit. You don't get to talk. This isn't about you. This is about me and Conor." And Hearn, after a little bit of back and forth, has to shut up. And Ade actually said, "Well, okay, we had this list of people we were going to ask to, what they think, but let's sort of, Chris, you speak." So Chris spoke at length. Rambled quite a bit, said, there are two bad guys in this fight now. There's me. I've always been the pantomime villain ever since. I think he mentioned 2014 for some reason. I don't know why. Maybe he cites that as, maybe he thinks that was the first time that the public took a dislike to him. He says, but you, meaning Ben, Conor Benn, you're a bad guy too. Have you come to terms with that? Because I've come to terms with the fact that people don't like me. Have you come to terms with the fact? Because, and he's making an allusion towards Ben's failed test, which still is an issue in a lot of people's eyes. Ben then comes back with the opening gambit from Ben. This really was a definite dig. He said, "You can say what you like, but your own father doesn't even like you. He's not here. Where is he? He doesn't even like you." And Eubank said, "Oh, whatever." He just sort of water off a duck's back. He tried to give that impression, even if it did sting a bit. It's not a very nice thing to say, but then these two are not very nice to each other. And probably the public don't want them to be. Probably the public want this sort of villainy going on, this sort of, verbal slapstick. It's like a Keystone Cop, old silent Keystone Cops movie with words and between two boxers. But they moved on, and then Nigel Benn said a few things. He said to Chris Jr., "I'm sorry that I said I hated your father. I don't hate him. I'm glad he's in my life," because Nigel, being 61 years of age now, he recognises that, you always need a dance partner. And Nigel and Chris Sr. were dance partners, and they had two great fights, and their rivalry was very much helped put British boxing on the map. He said, "But you're going to get your face smashed in by Conor. Conor's going to smash you up." And Chris said, "Well, I don't really want to hear apologies. I like to hear you saying what Conor's going to do to me." And Conor then, Chris said, because the size difference was mentioned, when there is a visible size difference when they stand next to each other, Chris said, "It ain't about size, it's about my skill." And in fact, when Ben Shalom started to mention size and other things, Chris Jr. actually sort of said, "Okay, we've heard enough of this." This is his own promoter he's talking about. All this stuff is really bullshit. We don't need to hear this. He's talking about his own promoter. He also made a comment, so Ben Shalom shut up. Ben was saying, you being Conor and Eddie Hearn, you wanted the rematch clause. They say, no, you wanted it. And Ben said, "Yeah, well, we were going to take it because it's two easy paydays, and he mentioned size and Eubank just wasn't interested in listening to anyone. As he put it, "The only people I want to hear speak are Conor Benn and me." Eubank also said this is not a team sport. This is a solo sport. Well, which, considering he's got Jonathan Banks and Ronnie Davies sitting there, is who Ade mistakenly called Ronnie Shields, much to Eubank Jr.'s chagrin. He said, you should respect him more, and Ade apologised, but it was just a slip of the tongue, no big deal. But considering Jonathan Banks and I almost called him Ronnie Ronnie Davis was sitting there. Ronnie Davis, of course, trained Eubank Sr. I mean, you've got to be in his, must be about 80 years old now, Ronnie Davis. But he actually said, well, actually, size does matter. And Ronnie Davis is an old school boxing trainer, and he put up with Junior's old man, who was bad enough. He ain't going to be fussed about what Junior's got to say. It literally is war off a duck's back with Ronnie Davis. But when you consider that those two are sitting there, Banks and Davis, for Eubank Jr. to say, well, this isn't a team sport, is, again, a bit disparaging. So Eubank really was standing, or rather sitting on that top table, saying, it's me and no one else. He wasn't intent on, bigging up his team at all. Whereas Ben and Eddie Hearn was sort of, and Nigel they were sort of little, it was like a tag team trio. They were sort of going at it with a three-pronged attack. Now, inevitably, at some point, as the press conference went on, you knew it was going to be raised. Eubank Jr. said he read out a tweet from someone saying that the guy who sent the tweet out said, I don't like Eubank, but I hope he smashes Conor Benn to bits, or words to that effect. And there was a reference to the eggs thing, because Conor Benn failed to ped tests, and eggs were blamed at some point. And Conor immediately said, I've been found innocent by the WBC, British Boxing Board of Control. No, you haven't, Conor. Now, this is the point. Really winds me up. And Eubank Jr., this is, even though I don't really have a horse in this race, this was the bit that I agreed with Eubank Jr. on, and that is that, no, Conor Benn has not been found innocent. He's been cleared to fight, as are many people who failed tests. But that's not proof there was nothing in your system. You've been cleared to fight. And Conor Benn has not proved his innocence regarding those failed ped tests. Whichever way you want to slice and dice it, whatever excuse you want to make, and you want to compare the Conor Benn situation to other people who failed ped tests and got away with it, you can do all of that stuff. Some of those points may be valid, but Conor Benn has not been found innocent of failing 2 drugs tests. He failed 2 drugs tests, and those stand. He's been cleared to fight. Fine, we're getting this fight, all right? But that's what Eubank was saying, and that's absolutely right. And Ben made it. The best thing Ben could come out with was, I proved that something. I'm paraphrasing, but I proved that those 2 tests, I've proved that I'm cleared to fight. You can never clear yourself of being a wanker, or some playground bullshit like that, which, again, Eubank just sort of gave complete disdain to. Now, after the press conference had finished, and Eddie Hearn and Eubank Jr. were really going back and forth, there was a face-to-face. And this was where the real fun started. I gotta be honest, this press conference, even though I'm not fussed about the fight, the press conference was good fun, and this bit was this is really going to sell tickets. They were up close and personal. Initially, Eubank started talking to Ben. I couldn't hear what was said. Ben smirked and made a few comments. Eubank leant in as if to say, speak in my ear, please. And then he slapped him, not punched him, but slapped him hard across the side of the head with an egg in his hand, and the egg goes everywhere. And Ben just kicks off. I mean, he goes mental. It takes about 5 security guards to hold him down. He's getting his shirt pulled off him and holding him back. And then they pull him off the stage. Nigel Benn was pissed off as well. I mean, Nigel's a man in his 60s, but I still wouldn't have a row with him. Well, I'm not far off his age myself. But, people half his age, you don't want to go near Nigel Benn when he's in that sort of mood. He's still Nigel Benn, and Eubank exit stage left, job done. Clearly a premeditated thing. Eggs. I'm going to take an egg in there. I'm going to splatter it across his face. I'm going to do this to. But Conor Benn was not happy. He was not happy, and all the fun of the fair. It will sell tickets. Eddie Hearn. I don't know whether he was genuinely outraged. He must be loving this, absolutely loving it. And so would Ben Shalom. But Eddie Hearn was interviewed afterwards. Well, all bets are off now. We heard a crack and we thought it could be glass, and all this sort of crap he's coming out with. And I think Eddie probably was a bit irritated by Chris Eubank Jr. because he had his nose put out of joint by Eubank Jr. saying, shut up. You know, we don't like each other. I'm not listening to your bullshit. Just shut up. Because Eddie has a big ego, and people with big egos who are quite narcissistic, which Eddie most certainly is, they don't like being put in their place. So I think he probably wasn't quite as outraged about this egg incident as he thought, as he pretended to be. But he's like, oh, you know, oh, that's a bitch move, and all bets are off now. Oh, you wait for the Tottenham press conference in Tottenham. Oh, anything could happen. Anything could happen. Eddie, you love it, mate. You love it. Why wouldn't you love it? For once, you don't have to mouth off and do your used car salesman routine, or your, you know, selling double glaze into unsuspecting pensioners routine by cold calling. You've got someone doing the promotional for you. No problem, you know. So he probably loves it, but he does not like Eubank. He's had his nose put out of joint by Eubank. And Eubank, yeah. I mean, Ben and well, both the Bens, Nigel and Conor, were having a go at Eubank because he got stopped by Liam Smith, which he did. I mean, he won the rematch, but there was no third fight, which unfortunately, I always think there should be a decider in boxing. Some people say, "Oh, I don't like rematches. I'm sick of rematches." Man, I don't go along with that. I don't agree with that. I want to see. I don't agree that the second fight is revenge. No, you're one each, so you have a third fight. Trilogies are a massive part of boxing history and should be. But you know, they were making a big deal out, despite the fact he's won all, out of the fact that Smith in the first fight stopped Eubank early. Was it 4 rounds? And they also talked about the weight stipulation, you know, the rehydration clause. And Eubank said, yeah, it puts me at a little bit of a disadvantage, but I'm still going to win the fight. Don't worry about that. It's just, and they paid me. I said, show me the money. You want me to shave off a bit more weight? You show me the money, and then I'll do it. But will it be a factor? I don't know. Even Eubank Jr. himself says, yes, it will be a factor, but it won't stop me from winning. We will see. We will see. But it'll be interesting to see the so-called fallout. You watch these two will be shaking hands and cuddling each other after the fight because they'll have made so much damn money together. Even the fathers are, you know, on reasonably good terms now. And if you remember them back in the day, if you're my age, you can remember those fights. They, you know, Nigel Benn really did dislike Eubank Senior seriously. But yeah, so the press conference tour thing has kicked off with a lot of drama. But there's no doubt this egg slap thing was definitely premeditated by Eubank Jr. and we'll sell a few more tickets. So what did you think? Leave your comments below. Let me know what you thought of this little circus. I thought it was good fun. I do hope, though, I mean, they're obviously going to fight. It's not a fight that I don't like the whole catch weight gimmick thing at all, but I do hope that the fight at least partially lives up to all the piss and win that premeditates it. You know, I want to see a good fight, but whether we will, the jury's still out. We'll find out on fight night, obviously. But this was a good laugh. Let me know what you think. Comments below. Subscribe to the channel if you're new, and hit the like button. And spread the word about Joe Stunner Boxing. Much love to all of you. I'll catch you later. Bye for now.